In the year 1520, the Ottoman Empire stood at a crossroads. In Istanbul, the city once called Constantinople, jewel of two worlds, a young sultan ascended the throne. His name was Suleiman, son of Selim I, grandson of Mehmed the Conqueror. At just 26 years old, he inherited an empire that stretched from the Danube to the Nile, from the gates of Vienna to the deserts of Arabia. He was tall, solemn, deeply pious, and steeped in poetry and law. He dreamed not only of conquest but of justice, of becoming a ruler worthy of divine favor and human memory. Meanwhile, far to the northwest, in the quiet, forested lands of Ruthenia, a region caught between Polish castles and Tatar raids, a young girl named Alexandra, later known as Roxelana, lived a simple life. No one could have guessed that this daughter of an Orthodox Christian priest would one day become the most powerful woman in the Islamic world. In the early 1522s, Crimean Tatar raiders swept through Ruthenia, as they often did, taking captives to sell in the great slave markets of the Ottoman Empire. Among them was the teenage Alexandra, bright-eyed, intelligent, with a voice said to charm birds from trees. She was brought to Istanbul, inspected, and entered the imperial harem under the name Roxelana, the Ruthenian one. The harem was no mere pleasure palace. It was a school of politics, etiquette, language, and survival, governed by the formidable Kızlar Ağası, chief black eunuch, and the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother. It trained women to serve, seduce, and if fortune smiled, bear a future sultan. Roxelana stood out. She learned Turkish, Persian, and Arabic. She mastered calligraphy, music, and the delicate art of courtly speech. But more than that, she possessed wit, warmth, and an uncanny emotional intelligence. When Suleiman first noticed her, it was not just her beauty that captivated him, but her laughter, something rarely heard in the hushed corridors of Topkapi. Unlike his predecessors, Suleiman did not rotate among consorts. He returned to Roxelana again and again. She bore him a daughter, Mihrima, then sons, Mehmed, Selim, Bayezid, and Cihangir. With each birth, her status grew, but so did the danger. The harem was a nest of rivals, especially Mahidevran Sultan, mother of Shehzade Mustafa, Suleiman's eldest and most promising son. Yet, Suleiman's devotion defeat tradition. In a move that stunned the court and the Islamic world, he freed Roxelana from slavery and then, around 1533 or 1534, he married her in a public ceremony. No Ottoman sultan had taken a legal wife since Mehmed II 2 centuries earlier. The implications were seismic. This was no concubine. This was a queen in all but name. From that moment, Roxelana, now Hürrem Sultan, the joyful one, stepped onto the world stage. She moved from the secluded old palace into Topkapi Palace itself, living beside Suleiman in chambers that overlooked the Golden Horn. She advised him on matters of state, read diplomatic dispatches, and even composed letters to foreign monarchs. When tensions flared with Poland, Hürrem, remembering her homeland, urged diplomacy. In a surviving letter to King Sigismund II, Augustus, she wrote with grace and strategic insight, "I beg your majesty to maintain peace with my husband, for I desire only harmony between our peoples." Her influence was not merely sentimental. She understood power. While Suleiman marched across Europe taking Belgrade, crushing the Knights of St. John at Rhodes, laying siege to Vienna, Hürrem governed from the heart of the empire. She commissioned Mimar Sinan, the empire's greatest architect, to build the Haseki Sultan complex, a mosque, school, hospital, and public kitchen in Istanbul that served thousands. In Jerusalem, she funded baths for pilgrims. In Mecca, she built fountains for thirsty travelers. Her charity was both piety and propaganda, a declaration that she, once a slave, now shaped the soul of the empire. But love in an imperial court is never safe from ambition. Suleiman's eldest son, Mustafa, was beloved by the Janissaries and many provincial governors. Though not Hürrem's child, he was charismatic, capable, and seen as the heir apparent. Hürrem, however, knew that if Mustafa ruled, her own sons would be eliminated, as was Ottoman custom to prevent civil war. A deadly drama unfolded over 2 decades. Through whispers, alliances, and carefully placed rumors, Hürrem and her trusted ally, the Grand Vizier Rustam Pasha, who would later marry her daughter Mirima, painted Mustafa as a threat. In 1553, as Suleiman prepared for another campaign against Persia, he summoned Mustafa to his tent. The prince entered only to be strangled by Janissaries on his father's orders. The empire mourned. Poets wrote elegies. Suleiman himself was said to weep for weeks. But the path was clear. Selim, Hürrem's second son, though less brilliant and more fond of wine than war, would inherit the throne. Hürrem did not live to see it. She died in 1558, 8 years before Suleiman. The Sultan, now gray and weary, ordered her buried in a mausoleum beside the Süleymaniye Mosque, his own final resting place, still under construction. He composed a final poem under his pen name Muhibbi. The Radiant One has left this world. My rose has withered in the garden of time. Where once her laughter filled the palace halls, now only echoes remain. When Suleiman died in 1566 on campaign near Sigidvar, his body secretly returned to Istanbul so as not to demoralize the army. The empire was at its zenith, and though his successors never matched his brilliance, the institutional and cultural foundations he and Hürrem built endured. Their union marked the dawn of the Sultanate of Women, a century in which mothers and wives of sultans wielded real power. Nurbanu, Safi, and Kosum Sultan would follow in Hürrem's footsteps, ruling from behind silk curtains, but shaping wars, treaties, and reforms. In Europe, their story became legend. Diplomats called her La Rosa for her red gold hair. Writers depicted her as a schemer, but also as a tragic heroine of love and ambition. In the Ottoman chronicles, she was praised as a pious benefactor and devoted wife. Today, their love story is remembered not just in textbooks, but in grand mosque courtyards, in Istanbul's cobbled alleys, and in the silent presence of 2 tombs side by side. Suleiman and Hürrem, the lawgiver and the joyful one, who together redefined what an empire could be. What began as the fate of a captured girl became the pivot of an empire. In a world where women were often invisible, Hürrem Sultan carved her name in stone, ink, and law. And Suleiman, warrior, poet, reformer, found in her not just a consort, but a partner in building a legacy that would outlive them both. Their story is more than history. It is a testament to how love, intelligence, and courage can move the pillars of power even in the most rigid of worlds.